Hello, everybody. This is Mike Klump with ATV Ride Safe Oklahoma, and I'm the coordinator for that program here in Oklahoma. And I want to share with you some information about being safe on ATVs today. And if you notice on this first slide right here, kind of talks about who we are. We are ATV Ride Safe Oklahoma. We were formed back in 2011. Our key lead sponsor is the Children's Center Hospital in Bethany, Oklahoma. Of course, OU Medicine Trauma One's another key sponsor, and the State Department of Health. Other sponsors are the Oklahoma Safety Council, Safe Kids of Oklahoma, of course, the ATV Safety Institute based out of California. And finally, too, we have a dealership that gives good support to this particular program, which is Ajax Motorsports in Oklahoma City. And so we're going to start this presentation right now. On the screen you're seeing right now a classroom on the right-hand side over here from up in Guthrie with a grade school. And then right here's just a picture of an ATV rider going through the ATV rider course. So we'll start with the program. Today's program is called ATV and also side-by-side safety. We're going to cover that a little bit for you today to make sure you're being safe on those machines. And every ride, every time, doing the things you need to be doing. And then the big question is, are you ready to ride? So let's move on into the program here. In this first slide, if you notice, there's a ATV on there, and that ATV is actually an ATV that my dad purchased when I was a freshman at Oklahoma State University. It was a Honda ATC 90, and that was the first corporation Honda was that introduced ATVs to the U.S. And we bought that ATV to use on the farm to go out and check cattle, check fence lines, and things like that. And of course, you notice there that it's not a four-wheeler; it is a three-wheeler, and a different kind of machine. If you notice here on the back end, these tires back here, there's no wheel there. That tire had to be changed at a dealership. Now, if we got a flat, we could plug it, and we did that a lot too. And but we couldn't change that tire off that axle hub and doing that. But anyway, we bought that ATV in '71. When my dad bought that ATV, he bought something to go along with it. And probably the most important thing in this presentation today is making sure you're wearing the proper gear. My dad bought a helmet, and myself here, Mike, has never operated an ATV, a dirt bike, or a street bike without a helmet on my head. And we'll get into gear after a while and talk about that more specifically, and the proper kind of gear and what you need to have there too. So anyway, we still have that ATV on the farm. We have another one just like it, just a couple of years newer. It's a '73. It actually had a wheel in the back end. Of course, we don't use these anymore. In 1989, the U.S. Product Consumer Group banned the manufacturing of all three-wheel ATVs. And that was '89. They'd had so many deaths and injuries across the country and actually around the world that they had the manufacturers stop production, and that's when we started seeing four-wheelers come about around 1990. So I'm going to move on and go to the next slide here. Today we're going to cover three things, three riding tips. Key thing we're going to cover, of course, is riding the right size machine for your age and for your size. And this is important if you have younger brothers and sisters. Of course, it's important for you too. I know there's a lot of ATVs out there that are even large for me, and I'd rather be on the right size ATV for my physical size too, because they're a lot easier to handle and do that too. Also, we're going to talk about wearing the proper gear, the proper riding gear. And finally, too, we're going to talk about practicing the right riding strategy when you're out there, whether it be on a trail, using a machine like this on the farm or wherever it may be, too. The reason we do ATV safety, of course, and why we do that is since 2010 across the U.S., we've had over 5,000 people that have died in ATV crashes. And that's a large number. This year, 2020, since January 1 through August, we had 20 deaths involving ATVs here in Oklahoma, and that's way too many. And we've had some deaths this fall, and our numbers are probably going to be higher than on the average. Usually we average 20 to 22 deaths a year. This year we're going to be way above that. So again, making sure we're doing the right thing. Part of that could be that we're with COVID, we may be outside a lot more, doing more things. We're home more, and so again, we need to make sure we're doing the right thing out there. Oklahoma has one of the nation's highest rates of injury for young people 16 years of age or under. And the primary reason for that is 90% of those crashes occur with with drivers under the age of 16 operating large adult-sized ATVs. A 10-year-old is not made to be on an adult-sized ATV. A 12-year-old, 13-year-old, they're just large frame machines. And we'll get into different sizes of machines here in a moment and talk about the best size machine for you, for your size, for your age too, in doing that. And finally, just another stat here too, just over a 7-year period at OU Medical Center there in Oklahoma City, 737 patients admitted over a 7-year period. And that's way too many people being admitted just to one hospital alone here in Oklahoma. And just think about all the other hospitals, other clinics where people go in for treatment from an injury, everything from broken bones to internal injuries, and of course to the most serious kind of injury, traumatic brain injury. We're going to define what an ATV is today. An ATV is defined as, of course, it's an all-terrain vehicle. It's any motorized off-highway vehicle traveling on 4 or more low-pressure off-road tires. Has a seat to be straddled by the operator. It has, of course, handlebars for steering control. Its intended use is by a single operator and no passengers, unless it's a designed two-up tandem ATV. And I'll show you a picture of one of those in just a moment. A machine that's specifically made for 2 people, the operator and the passenger. And all ATVs, if you notice down here too, it talks about being rider active. That means you can't just sit there like a bump on a log. You've got to actually shift your weight left, right, stand up, sit down, forwards, backwards to safely operate that ATV and keep all 4 tires on the ground. And that's our goal, is to make sure all 4 tires stay on the ground. We're not professionals. We're not out there as professionals that race ATVs, maybe do stunts on ATVs. We're making sure we use them for work and also for play and recreation. We want to make sure we're doing the right thing to keep us safe out there as you operate our ATVs. Now, in this slide right here, if you notice, every ATV has one of these warning labels on it. It talks about the age and size recommendations. Of course, nobody under 6, all the way up to nobody under 16 for an adult-sized ATV. And again, nobody under age 6 should operate an ATV or be on an ATV. And we kind of recommend that if you're going to have a family's going to have their children learn how to operate an ATV, they wait till their ages 9 to 10. That's when they have better motor skills to be able to physically handle that machine. And of course, it needs to be a youth machine designed for them. Next slide here, as we look at it, you notice over here on the left-hand upper corner is a youth ATV. That's a 90cc ATV and designed for 10-year-olds and up. And then we move over to the right here. This ATV is a 250, Can-Am 250, designed for 14-year-olds and up. And this is actually a machine that I actually use myself. It's a great machine. It provides everything I need to have recreationally, as far as being able to do things on trails, have fun on it. It's a machine that can travel fairly fast too, and it's a lot of fun to ride, and it's one that's easier to handle than a larger ATV like this adult utility ATV down here in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, of course, utility ATVs are great for work on the farm, checking cattle and doing those type of things. This ATV right here, of course, most of your adult utility ATVs are also can be either 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive, and sometimes you need 4-wheel drive on the farm. But again, every ATV does have a warning label on it that we have to follow through the ATV Safety Institute to make sure that when we train people that they're operating the right size ATV for their size and age. And that reflects back to you too, making sure you're following those guidelines. And then over here on the bottom right is a true 2-up tandem ATV. If you notice, here's the operator seat right here, and behind is the passenger seat. Sits up a little higher, has a backrest, has hand holes here on either side, and then right in here is a place for that passenger to put their feet to on their own set of footrests. And where the operator's footrest is down here, the passenger's is right here. And that machine is designed for 2 people. The wheelbase is longer, farther apart here, and puts that rear axle underneath that passenger. So as they go up an incline, the operator can stand up, shift their weight forward, and then the passenger can actually lean and shift their weight forward too, to make sure that machine has no chance of rolling over backwards on both the operator and the passenger too, that ATV. But great machines. Again, too, I'd mentioned earlier about the fact that all ATVs and even side-by-sides have an off-road low-pressure tire. And if I put more air pressure in that tire than it's required, it's going to make it be more stiffer. It's going to make it bounce more when I hit certain things. And the typical air pressure in a youth ATV is around 3 pounds. This particular ATV right here, the 250, is 4 pounds. Adult ATVs are somewhere between 5 and 7 pounds of air pressure. And it takes a low pressure tire gauge to check the tire pressure on these ATVs. And most of the time, we just use a bicycle tire pump to air those up. If you use an air compressor, you sometimes put too much air in, you got to let air out. So again, that's basically the major type of ATVs that are out there. And so we're going to kind of move on here a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about side-by-sides. And of course, we're seeing a lot more of these machines being utilized for recreation and also on the farm too. And this particular side-by-side is called the UTV, or Utility Task Vehicle. It's an off-highway vehicle, again, with 4 or more low-pressure off-road tires. It may have a bench seat or bucket seats. It has a steering wheel for control, pedals and braking, and for acceleration. And usually the top speed of a utility vehicle, is somewhere around 30 miles an hour. Some of them may go a little faster than 30 nowadays. And again, it kind of varies, but usually they go at a slower speed. Of course, all these vehicles, most of them have what's called a ROP system, ROPS, a rollover protection system. And that's this roll bar system that protects that passenger, that operator, in case that machine does roll over, prevents them from being crushed. Now that ROP system will not work unless you've got your seatbelt on, it's fastened, you've got your side netting on, your side door on here and closed. And then too, just because you've got that ROP system doesn't mean you shouldn't wear a helmet. If that machine does roll, your head's going to come into contact with something, either the ROP system, the machine itself, or in a rollover, your head could hit the ground too. So we need to make sure we're wearing the proper PPE when we're operating these machines. Again, here's a warning label for a side-by-side. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the manufacturer says that a person should be 16 years of age and have a valid driver's license to operate this machine. Now, again, that's not a state law here in Oklahoma, but we strongly encourage you to follow those guidelines. If you're out there operating a side-by-side at your farm, at your home, and you're under age 16, strongly encourage you not to have passengers with you in that machine, because if something happens, you have a crash, they get injured, that could affect, of course, the person's family that's being injured, or it could affect your family too. And so again, make sure you're following those guidelines. Of course, this is the side-by-side UTV. Now moving on, here's another side-by-side. It's an ROV, recreational off-highway vehicle. Again, same type of definition here. 4 or more low-pressure off-road tires, bench or bucket seats. Most of the time, ROVs have bucket seats, and of course, it could be 2 people, could be 4 people. Some UTVs can handle up to 6 people. It kind of depends on the size of that machine and how it's designed. And again, of course, they have steering wheel, pedals for braking and for acceleration, and they have a ROP system, to a roll protection system. And these machines travel at speeds greater than 30 miles an hour. So again, same type of warning label. Every machine's a little bit different. You need to check the owner's manuals on how they should be maintained and operated. And again, tire pressures are very critical there too in doing that. So just want to spend some time on side-by-sides here. We're going to move into some other things here in just a moment. But again, we're seeing a larger increase in injuries and deaths involving side-by-sides. Here in Oklahoma, we do have some laws now that have been passed that say that they can be operated on public roads and highways. Again, the manufacturer says they should not be operated on any public road or highway. That's an off-road, low-pressure tire on both the ATV and the side-by-side, not designed for hard paved surfaces. They grip too well. They can cause that machine to easily flip, and especially in a turn. And so again, they're made and designed to be in off-road situations only. That's what the manufacturer says. And we need to follow those guidelines. They're the engineers that design those machines and know how they will handle. Let's kind of move on here, and we're going to talk a little bit about gear. The young lady in the picture there is my daughter when she was 10 years old, and she's got the proper gear. That's my daughter, Elizabeth. She's now a senior at Oklahoma State University in engineering, and she's been operating ATVs since age 9. Her mom and I made the decision that because we were around ATVs. We had friends that had them. We had them at the farm. That she needed to know what to do and what not to do around an ATV to be safe out there. And so we had her go through the ATV Institute's rider course program. It's about a 4.5 hour class to learn how to safely operate those. And then two, she never operated an ATV unless she was being supervised by an adult, most of the time with myself or another family member or friend that was an adult as we were operating and riding our ATVs out there. Dress like the pros. Of course, the key piece and most important piece of gear is going to be a good helmet. You notice it says DOT right here. That's the U.S. Department of Transportation. It meets the standards required by them. And there's some other standards too. The Snell Foundation does testing of helmets too. But every helmet for any motorized vehicle needs to be that meet that DOT standard. She has a set of goggles inside here, some eye protection. They're ANSI, American National Standards, certified goggles. That safety lens in there to prevent your eyes from getting injured or something flies up off the surface, or if a tree branch slaps you across the face as you're operating your machines. You need to have that all the time, be wearing those. She has a pair of gloves on her hands to protect her hands, also help her grip the handlebars, the grips on the handlebars. And of course, you take a spill, you can protect your hands too. And then also just going down a trail, something slaps you on the hand, tendency is to let go of those handlebars. You want to make sure you have good control of that ATV. Your hands always stay on the handlebars. They don't come off those handlebars once you're in operation of that machine. Of course, long sleeve shirt and long pants, taking care of your arms from things that may hit you in the arm on a trail. Of course, if you take a spill, you don't want to get that strawberry that on your legs. And again, it's just good protection for you too. Of course, motors on ATVs can get hot. Pardon me, just like on a dirt bike. And you make sure you're protecting your legs. And finally, a good pair of over-the-ankle closed-toed boots. And there she's wearing a pair of motocross-style boots. Most of the time on the farm, we're wearing cowboy boots. I wear hiking boots a lot too, and so does my daughter. Just kind of depends on what situation we're riding into, and from there on. We're going to get a little bit more specific now and talk about gear. Basically, we've got two types of helmets here. We have this helmet right here, this black one. It's a full face helmet. And over here is an open face helmet. Both are high quality helmets. They meet the DOT standards. I know I have some helmets that also meet the Snell standards, the Snell Foundation, who tests helmets too. Of course, the advantage of this particular helmet right here is it's got protection for your lower jaw and your mouth area, and adds that added protection. And I know when we ride recreationally, we put all the gear on we can, and we're going to be wearing probably our full-faced helmets. Now, working on the farm, teaching sometimes, we're wearing open-face helmets. And again, it's a good quality helmet, taking care of the most important part of your body, which is that brain up there. And again, with this helmet, it may be a little cooler, more winds hitting your face. And then two, you can speak a little bit easier with that helmet. I know I have a new helmet that was designed over in Australia by Yamaha and Shark. And it now has on the side here an area right here that lets me be able to hear when I'm out there working cattle on the farm or riding with friends. We can actually hear each other. And instead of having a D-ring to fasten that helmet down here, it's got a ratchet system. And it weighs less than 2 pounds. And it has a good venting system on that open face helmet. So I use that a lot now when I ride and operate an ATV. It's more comfortable, lighter weight, and again, it allows me to hear, especially working around the farm and trying to communicate with people, listening to cattle, things like that too, and doing that. How a helmet works, basically, you've got this hard outer shell, and that prevents things from penetrating that shell that could injure your head. Helmets are made out of could be made out of fiberglass, like I mentioned earlier, and then two, they could be a hard plastic, and a lot of our helmets that I have are made out of a hard plastic. And I do have some helmets that are made out of a carbon fiber material. Now, when you get to carbon fiber materials, what the advantage there is that they're usually lighter weight, and of course they cost more too. This particular helmet right here, is a hard plastic shell, good high quality DOT certified helmet that runs around $95 to $100. This open face helmet right here, somewhere in the range of $60 for that to $100. It kind of varies on the manufacturer too of that helmet. But again, most important piece of gear is going to be that helmet. taking care of the most important part of your body, which is your head. Moving on down here, we have eye protection, goggles, or it could be a face shield on a helmet too. I prefer goggles because with face shields, certain times of the year, you're riding, that face shield can fog up, whereas these goggles pretty well don't fog up quite as much. Now, they can fog up, but not like a face shield on certain days, especially in a cool morning, and then you're in there and you've got your breath on that shield. It can cause it to fog up. So eye protection, very important. And again, this safety lens right here, if something flies up, it's not going to come through and injure our eyes, and take care of us that way too. We get to side-by-sides now. When you're operating a side-by-side, I recommend if you're out there going at faster speeds, definitely wear a pair of goggles. But we are allowed to have people train when we do our training with side-by-sides to wear a good pair of safety glasses, kind of like you use in a shop, and they provide protection too. But again, it's a pair of safety glasses. You get dust can still roll around and get into your eyes. So again, we recommend safety goggles if you're going to be going at speeds that do create a lot of dust and those type of things. Good pair of gloves. Of course, this is motocross gloves right here. I've got some of those. And then two, most of the time I just buy a pair of gloves from the farm store. They cost about $2.50. They're cotton. And I try to get the gloves to have those little black kind of rubber dots on them that help me grip the handlebars real well. But you want to protect your hands. You want to be able to control that ATV as you're operating that ATV. Even on the side-by-side, that steering wheel, you want to keep your hands on the steering wheel. We talk about steering wheels too. Again, as you put your hands on that steering wheel, always keep your thumbs on top of that steering wheel. Don't wrap your thumb around that steering wheel. If you're in a turn with a side-by-side that maybe doesn't have power steering, you can break a thumb pretty easily too. So make sure you keep your thumbs on top for control, and there's different ways to do that as you turn that ATV too, or pardon me, that side-by-side. So, you've got the handlebars down here. Again, like I mentioned earlier, hands always stay on the handlebars. You've got your controls here. You've got your brake levers up here that you can reach forward and grab. But once you've braked, your hands go back to the handlebars for good control of the ATV. This little red button right here is called your engine on-off switch. If you're going down a trail and you've got to shut that engine off, you don't take your hand off the handlebar, reach over and turn that key off. You use that on-off switch. You either push it left or right, or push it up or down to turn that machine off. On the right side here, you notice down here is the black throttle button. You always need to, that's where your right thumb's gonna be working that throttle button too, and giving it the acceleration for that machine. Moving on. Some friends of mine, Dr. Mary Aiken and Dr. Steve Bowman, did a national study of helmet effectiveness involving ATVs. And this national study was taking place for about 7 years, and it was done with ATV operators or riders of all ages that were admitted to trauma centers that were not wearing helmets when they had that crash. And this is what they found out. They found out that those people were at a 62% increased risk for any traumatic brain injury. They were 3 times more likely to sustain a severe traumatic brain injury, and then 3.5 times more likely to have neck and face injuries. And right here, this bottom line, real key one right here, they were more than twice as likely to die in the hospital. Now, I know a lot of you play sports, baseball, softball, football. Again, out there on that football field, you got that helmet on for a reason out there. Your button heads, and again too, there's more energy involved in an ATV crash than there is out there on the football field. So why aren't we wearing the proper gear when we're operating our ATVs and our side-by-sides? Helmets don't cost that much. An ATV, especially a youth ATV like that 250, that's a $4,500 machine. A helmet, $100 helmet that's going to protect you is very important out there. And of course, side-by-sides, the price of side-by-sides anywhere from probably $5,000 and up, And so again, helmets don't cost that much. Let's make sure we're wearing the proper gear out there as you operate these machines. Very critical and very important that we have that helmet on our head, because you never know. It only takes a moment for something to go wrong. Now, other gear we've talked about earlier in that earlier slide with my daughter, again, a good long sleeve shirt. Now, on the farm, I'm wearing usually a long sleeve work shirt. In the summertime, I may have a short sleeve shirt on, but if I get on that machine, whether it be an ATV or side-by-side, I'm going to go over and get out of the pickup truck or out of the barn. I'm going to put on my long sleeve shirt. Could be in the form of a work shirt, could be a jersey I slip on over. I'm going to protect my arms out there as I'm operating that machine. And then again, most of the time I'm wearing a pair of blue jeans like these Wranglers right here. That they're good, abrasive type. They can handle things and abuse. You take a spill, protect your legs. Again, we have motocross gear in our family too when we ride recreationally. And to be honest, you can find motocross gear sometimes on sale cheaper than you can buy a pair of Wrangler jeans. So make sure you're wearing the proper gear. Protect your legs out there as you're operating those machines. And I know that you think you're inside a side by side. You're in there sitting in that seat. Again, you need to protect your legs and have the proper gear on. We look at boots, which is a key piece of gear. Again, protecting your feet. Your feet helps keep your feet on the footrest area. Your feet should never come off the footrest. That's where you take a great risk of injuring yourself seriously. Could be a broken ankle, could be a broken leg. Your feet always stay on the footrest, whether it be an ATV, or even when you're operating that side by side. A good pair of boots are going to make sure you operate those pedals right, whether it be the accelerator or the brake pedal. And then too, you notice there's motocross boots, and I've got a pair of motocross boots that are called low tops. Again, provide that good protection for my feet and help me control that ATV. Because when you're on the ATV and you're shifting your weight left and right, you're using your feet. A pair of flip-flops or sandals does not allow you to do that. And true story, we had one day at the emergency room at the Arkansas Children's Hospital. Ambulance pulled up. They brought in a 13-year-old young lady that was operating her little ATV with shorts, a t-shirt, and flip-flops on. Well, she had a small crash, got her left foot underneath the ATV, and she actually drugged the toes off her left foot. And she'd had a pair of tennis shoes on. We've been better than having those flip-flops on. So again, make sure that we're protecting our body parts. And again, that gear helps us control that machine. So make sure we're doing that. Of course, I mostly wear cowboy boots on the farm. Again, a good heel to keep my foot on that footrest and control that ATV. Other body protection, full body armor. Some of those, if you're riding recreationally, you see a lot of this, and especially in motocross, where they're wearing all the gear they can to protect them in case they're involved in a crash. Depends on what kind of riding you're doing and where you're going to be. But again, there's other gear that can be also wore out there as you operate your machines. We're going to move on and talk a little bit about kind of a pre-ride inspection. We have an acronym we call T-clock. Every one of those letters represents part of that machine we need to be checking. And you need to check that every day. Doesn't take that long to do that. Again, make sure it's in good working order before you take it out. And things can change from day to day. And the key first one here with the letter T is tires and wheels. That air pressure can change overnight with temperature of the air. And so you need to check that air pressure, make sure it's the proper amount. And especially you may have a left tire that's lower than the right tire, which is going to cause it to pull to the left, or vice versa if the right tire's too low. So again, make sure you're using that low pressure tire gauge and checking those tires. Condition of tires, a machine that's been around for a while, make sure that you've got some good tread there. It's going to help you control that machine. It's going to do what it needs to do for you and work for you like it needs to out there on the farm or on the trail. Again, look over your wheel bearings, kind of, shake that machine around, make sure it feels good and tight. Check your lug nuts. I mean, lug nuts can come loose on ATVs, and especially if you're out there riding some of those machines that don't meet the ANSI standards, and a lot of those are sold here across the United States. They don't meet the ANSI standards. They don't meet the requirements to be part of the ATV Safety Institute, SVIA, and meet those standards. Some of those machines aren't made quite as well. Materials aren't quite as well. So you need to definitely be checking those. And again, too, a lot of those machines that may cost $600 for a 150 or whatever compared to $3,000. That machine's always probably going to be labeled for 16 and up because they're not meeting the standards, and so they have to label those liability wise for 16 and up on doing that. Now, the next thing we're going to look at here is called controls and cables. And again, you just need to look these over. You need to know, of course, where they are. But again, check and see if they're working well. Does that thumb throttle, when you push it forward, does it release back? Do the handbrakes, when you grip them? Do they actually hold? Make sure that machine's not going to roll and you're grabbing those brake levers. And again, too, when you're doing that, to make sure you fit, and we'll get after a while, that you're going to make sure you can reach out there and grab those. And we'll talk about fit in just a moment. Again, does your brake lever work? And on most machines that are greater than 90 cc's or greater than 110 are going to have a right foot brake. And then too, the parking brake, when it's set, is it going to hold? And every machine's a little bit different. Most of the time, that parking brake's on the left-hand side over here in this area right here. There are a few exceptions. There's some machines where the parking brake's on this side here. And of course, some machines may be geared to where they have a clutch. Most machines we operate nowadays are fully automatic, or they could be semi-automatic where you can still shift them, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 back down, or 4, 3, 2, 1 back down. Again, without a clutch. But if it's got a clutch, make sure that clutch is in good working order. And of course, to shift it, you got to clutch it and do that too. We go on and talk some more here about pre-ride inspections. Your L represents lights and electronics. Does the ignition switch work? When it's in neutral, there should be a little green light that comes on that says it's in neutral. But another way to check that is to actually, make sure it's out of gear and see if you can roll that ATV with the park brake off. And that tells you that it's in neutral too. Your engine stop switch, which is this red button right down here, does it work? Does it shut that machine engine off? And then two, lights are important too, especially for riding when it starts to get dusk or there's not enough light out there. You're riding at night, though. One key thing to keep in mind if you ride at night is oftentimes people outride their lights. That lights only shine so far out there, and then they could get going too fast. And all of a sudden, there's that tree in the trail. When the trail turns to the left and they're going too fast, they can't come to a stop and end up hitting that tree. So again, but make sure you've got good working lights if your machine is equipped with lights. Oil and fuel. Again, good maintenance of your engine. Make sure you're doing the right thing there. It could be a dipstick. It could be a sight window, a glass window on the side of that engine that lets you see that oil to make sure it's a proper level. Your vents, if you're riding in dusty conditions, the vents on ATVs are found usually underneath the seat, and then there's a cover there. You've got to unsnap, pull out. Make sure it's free if you need to. You need to clean that, replace that filter when needed. And then some machines have a fuel supply valve too. Make sure it's in good working order. A lot of our newer machines, especially the new adult type machines, are fuel injected, are not going to have a fuel supply valve like the L ones, where you have the on position, you have the off in the center, and then you have a reserve in case you run out of fuel. When it's in the on position, you can go to reserve and get back home. But make sure you know where that's at on that unit, and make sure it's in good working order too. But again, changing your oil, good maintenance on your machine is real important. And again, making sure you've got the fuel you need for what you're doing out there, whether it be trail riding, work on the farm. You don't want to run out of fuel and have to walk back to the house too. Finally, your last C there, chain, drive shaft, your chassis. Look for free play. Make sure there's no free play there. Check the condition. Look at, if there's places to lubricate, do that. Again, check your nuts and bolts. The suspension can get damaged, especially in rough terrain. So look it over, make sure it's in good working order. So we've kind of gone through a basic T-clock pre-ride inspection here. That tires is critical every day. Make sure you got the proper tire pressure. And again, it doesn't take long to look your machine over, especially if you're doing it every day. You'll know where things are and what needs to be checked. So always do that with your machines, whether it be an ATV or side-by-side. Of course, side-by-sides take a little longer. You got to sometimes, if it's a side-by-side that has that bed in the back, you may have to pop that bed back there up and look underneath there. Every machine is just designed differently for its use. We're gonna get into this slide right here and talk a little bit about how we fit an ATV to an operator. And this young man right here, his name is Zane Pittman. He just graduated from the University of Arkansas. He's now a graduate assistant working on a master's, but Zane's kind of going through a little bit about fit here. And we've got these things right here we're going to cover, these 6 items right here. Clearance on an ATV. You notice when Zane stands up on this particular 200cc ATV, between the seat and his bottom right here, really his body, there's over 6 inches of clearance. And we recommend you have about 6 inches of clearance, because you're going down trail, you're getting ready to go over maybe a log or go through a dip on a trail. You need to stand up and you need to have that clearance, because if you can't stand up and get that clearance, that machine will Well, spring can actually launch you over the handlebars, especially small kids. And that's why you should never have a small child operating a large size ATV. They can't get that clearance and they get bounced off that ATV and get seriously injured. So again, having that 6 inches of clearance is real important. We look at upper legs. You notice how on Zane's here, they're slightly angled. And again, too, a small child on a large ATV, their feet probably aren't going to reach the footrest. Well, they have no control at all of that ATV. So again, slightly angled, could be level. Again, another issue is if you're riding an ATV that's too small for you, your knees can get up into the handlebars. And of course, with 13-year-olds in our program, I've got to put them on usually a 90 or a 110cc ATV. And so what we can do is we can actually go in and we can adjust and rotate those handlebars forward to when they turn that ATV to the left or right, they're not getting the handlebars into their knees. And so again, fitting is very important out there. Foot length, most ATVs designed today that we're going to be using and riding, your feet are going to fit inside the footrest areas. And most ATVs have a protection right here that keeps things from being thrown back onto your leg from the front tire. And again, there's protection back here. Old ATVs, like that one I showed you earlier in the picture, there was no protection there. If my foot came off the foot peg, it could slip off and get into that back tire. Nowadays, they're designed to where your feet are going to be inside that footrest area. And again, like we said earlier, always keep your feet on the footrest. You want to have full control of that ATV. Never take that leg off. An ATV like this, you put that leg out there in a roll, you can break a leg easily. So foot length is important there. Grip reach. When your hands are on the handlebars, your body position, good posture, you should have a bend to your elbows. If your arms are real straight when you're operating that ATV, you don't have control of that ATV. It's too large for you. So again, you want to have what's called grip reach, which you want to have a bend to your elbow so you can actually turn the handlebars of that ATV. And that's important too. Now we talk about throttle reach. We'll come down to this diagram right here. Your hands on the handlebars, with your hand fully wrapped around that handlebar, can your thumb push that throttle button? A lot of small children on large ATVs, they have to pull their hand down and they can't, and then they can push the throttle, but then they've lost control of the ATV because their hand's kind of off that grip, and they push that button. They push it too hard, it lunges forward, they get thrown off backwards sometimes too. So again, making sure we actually fit that ATV. And finally, your brake reach with your hands on the grips right here, and you reach up to brake that ATV. In this case, this machine right here has your front brake, which is going to be over here on the right-hand side, your rear brakes right here. Reach up, your first knuckle should pass that brake lever so you can gently squeeze and bring that ATV to a stop. And that's very important. And again, too, over here on the left side, you're going down the trail. You have to turn that machine off, that engine off, and you reach over here with your left thumb and you push that engine on-off switch to turn it off. Once your machine's off, then you can take and turn the key off right here in the center where the key's located at too on the ATV. But sizing the ATV is very important for all ages, even adults. Like I said earlier, there's some machines that are pretty darn big out there for me. And again, too, making sure you fit that ATV. Young adults, smaller size adults, a large ATV can be very cumbersome, and make sure they know how to operate that and feel comfortable in that machine. And again, we just stress the importance of if you're going to learn if you're going to be operating a machine and you've never been on one, definitely you need to go through the ATV Institute's ATV Rider Course program. They also have an online class that you can take, and that helps learn some things. But again, we strongly recommend you go through the hands-on program with a licensed instructor and take advantage of that too. And that's offered free here in Oklahoma. You can contact us and we'll get you set up for a free hands-on class too to do that. Let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit about management, risk management of ATVs and a basic riding strategy. And again, you're seeing right here another acronym, and it's called SIPTE, SIPDE, SIPTE. And the first letter, the letter S, it represents scan and search. So you're going down a trail on your machine, and whether it be an ATV or even a side-by-side, you're always scanning your terrain, looking at your environment, looking for things out there that could be, hazards for you too. So you're scanning your terrain, you're searching the area you're riding in, and then you're identifying those hazards. And, it could be a fence line, Could be rocks, could be a rough trail, could be a dip in the trail, could be a creek area, could be trees on either side of you, could be cattle. I know we work cattle out there, or we're feeding cattle, and they start to come into the feed bunks. We're feeding cattle. If we're on ATV, you got to look out for cattle because they're hungry. They're going to those feed bunks, and you make sure you're out of their way too on doing that. So identify all those hazards. And then once you've identified those hazards, you've got to predict what will happen based on what you see in front of you. So if I'm out there and we are feeding cattle and I'm on the ATV too, maybe going out to check, look for calves or something, and Dad's feeding with the tractor. There's that big tractor. Does he see me when I'm on my ATV? Hear the cattle are coming. Usually what I do is I pull over to the side, kind of wait till things slow down, cattle at the feed bunks. Dad's gone with the tractor and I move on out on the trail and keep my head and eyes up and maybe look for baby calves, check fence line, things like that too. So again, you scan, you search your terrain, you identify those hazards, you predict what could happen based on what you see, and then you've got to make a decision. What do I do in this situation? If it's a dip in the trail, well, I've got to make sure I stand up. I've got to make sure to stand up to absorb that dip, use my legs as shock absorbers too, shift my weight left or right, or maybe just come to a stop too on that trail. And so we're applying these things too. And finally, once I've made that decision, I've got to execute my decision. I've got to follow through. Of course, all of these things right here, these 5 things take place pretty fast. It's just kind of like this. You're constantly doing that. You're scanning, you're identifying, you're predicting, you're making that decision, you're executing as you operate that machine. And that's whether you're operating an ATV, and even out there, if you're riding a horse, or those of you that are old enough to drive a motor vehicle, a car, or a pickup truck, going down the street, you're doing the same thing out there too. So basic riding strategy, very critical to make sure you're being safe on that ATV or that side by side out there and watching what's going on. Traveling at the proper speed and doing things. And one thing we haven't mentioned today is making sure that you are physically all right too. If you've been sick, maybe you've had some allergies. You're taking some medication for that can make you drowsy. Well, again, that can reduce your reaction time. Of course, drugs, alcohol can reduce your reaction time. Never, mix drugs, alcohol with operation of any motorized vehicle, whether it be an ATV, side by side, car, pickup truck, farm machinery. Make sure that you're not too tired. You get tired, reaction times aren't as great as they usually are. So again, make sure that you're in the best physical shape when you operate those machines out there and doing the right thing. And if you're on a trail ride with friends, take a break. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Stay hydrated. Carry that water with you. Of course, some things we haven't talked about. If you're on a trail ride, take that first aid kit. Take a tow strap in case somebody breaks down, so you can tow them back too. So some things you can carry with you to make sure you have a good experience on that ATV. One thing we haven't talked about is when you're operating your ATV, whether it be at home, on the farm, wherever it may be. I encourage you to ride with friends, have it, on trail rides, especially. Now, if I'm using the machine on the farm, or my daughter is, and say we're going out to check cattle or going out to check fence lines, we put a time limit out there. We say, I'm going to be gone for 30 minutes. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, you better come looking for me because something may go wrong. And yeah, we all carry cell phones nowadays, and we pull them out and we think we can use those. But if you're in a crash and you're injured, you may not be able to get to your cell phone. And so you need to make sure somebody knows where you're at, So I usually tell my dad, my brother, wife, daughter that, I'm going to go do this. I'll be back in about 30 minutes. If I'm not back, something's probably gone wrong. And so again, yeah, cell phones are great, but you may not be able to use that cell phone if you're injured. And ATVs are heavy machines. If you're underneath an ATV, you might not be able to get it pushed off of you too. I know we had an incident several years ago in Northeast Arkansas. Had a young lady from the FFA chapter there in Jonesboro, came home from school, put on her gear, went out to the farm, a large farm, to check some cows and stuff. Parents weren't home. Parents got home, realized their daughter wasn't there, then realized the ATV was gone. Well, they found their daughter about 2 hours later. She had rolled that ATV into a creek bed. It was on top of her, about 6 inches of water. And she had some internal injuries, but she didn't die from the internal injuries. She just physically got wore out trying to get the machine off of her, that she drowned in the creek bed. Again, let people know where you are. Make sure they know where you are, your time limit there, how long you'll be gone. keep yourself safe out there. And again, too, most of the time when we ride at the farm, a lot of times we're riding together. But if I am out there by myself, I'm going to let somebody know where I'm going and what's taking place out there. So, riding strategy, SIFTY, scan, identify, predict, decide, and execute. Critical to operating ATVs, dirt bikes, side by sides, riding your horse, doing that too, being safe out there. This next slide, here's an example here. We're on a trail ride. We're going down this trail right here. And you can kind of see it with the cursor right here. We're traveling this direction. This could be a trail out in western Oklahoma out there. And I used to ride some out there in the break areas and stuff, some of the breaks, and a lot of mesquite, pretty rough terrain. You notice on this trail here, it's a single rider trail. It's got what we call some camber. This side of the trail is a little higher than this side. So I better be shifting my weight to the uphill side here a little bit. And again, as I go over these dips or these little, what I call whoop-de-doos, I better be standing up or I can get tossed off my ATV. And again, I'm not sure, you may be coming up the other side. So in this area right here, I need to slow down. Of course, probably slow down through the entire thing. Definitely want to stand up, keep my weight shifted uphill. No chance of that machine rolling off to the right and coming off that trail edge right there too. So every trail situation is a little bit different. But again, knowing how to safely operate that, and by going through a rider course program, we train people in those things. Even people that have gone through that have been riding ATVs for years, but they've never gone through the rider course with the ATV Safety Institute, they learn a lot. In the class, they go, "Hey, I did not know I need to be doing that on my ATV. I didn't know I need to shift my weight this certain way, where to put my knees, how to shift my weight, when to do this, when to do that is very important." Next slide here. Here we are. We're down the bottom right-hand corner and on our ATV, and here it could be out in a forested, wooded area. If you notice, a pretty narrow trail, tree roots, large hardwood trees, some trees that are down, a gully washout area here, and over here we have another ATV and operator that, from what I can tell here, has not seen us yet. So I've noticed him over here, but he hasn't seen us. Could be wildlife behind these trees that could jump out. So again, on trails, especially new trails, you need to check them out. And even if you've checked them out, you've got to watch your speed on trails because things can change in 30 minutes or less. They can change, more could be wildlife, other things too. So in this scenario right here, probably the best thing to do is probably pull over to the right, wait till the other operators pass by you, and then go on down the trail and complete your ride. Of course, say you're gone down this trail for about 30 minutes, you come back, and say it's a bright sunny day. Well, on a bright sunny day, you got that sunlight coming through those trees in the summertime, lots of leaves, lots of shadows. So on those kind of days, you've got to slow down because those shadows change because that sun gets higher in the sky, you have different shadows. And so it's kind of hard to see out there. So you need to slow down. It's kind of like a strobe light going off if you travel too fast. You faster you go, it's kind of like a strobe light. And you get this flashing of light from the shadows and the light. So again, slow down in those situations. And again, if you're riding with friends on trails, single file, you need to spread out. Okay, spread out about, usually we say about 40 feet to maintain some distance in case you come to a stop. And again, kind of like follow the leader. They're going to be doing what you do too. If they see you stand up, they probably need to realize there's probably something coming up that they need to be prepared to stand up too. And just good common sense on those kind of trails out there in the wooded areas too, and being safe. Again, wildlife, especially this time of year in the fall, lots of deer out there moving around, turkey, things like that, but always be prepared. In this scenario here, just basically crossing a stream. Again, if it's flowing water, if it's flowing pretty fast, if it can move a car or pickup truck, it's going to move your ATV or side by side. Check the depth. If it's shallow enough, travel on through. I used to apply some brake pressure to my brakes. That kind of helps keep those discs a little drier if I have to come to a stop on the other side. But just use good common sense and don't go into water that's too deep. ATVs float really well, but they usually float upside down in streams and ponds and lakes. And so be safe out there. In this scenario, if you notice, here's the operator down here, and you look right here forward and kind of scan our terrain here, and that doing that SIFTY process. I've got some options here. I can go to the right, or I can go up this hill. Got narrow trails here. Got a trail right here going up this hill. This hill has got some camber too. This side of this trail is higher than this side. So if I make the decision to go up that hill, first of all, you can't just start that hill right here. You've got to start back here and have some momentum to get that machine up that hill. And you got to have momentum when you're going up a hill. And as I go up that hill, I've got to stand up on my ATV, shift my body weight forward, shift my weight to the left a little bit, and then be prepared for these little dips in that hill going up and get to the top. So, just that's kind of based on your skill level, your experiences, and how long you've been riding ATV. And of course, that day, if you're tired, I'm not sure I'd want to tackle a big hill like that right there too. And again, always make sure that if you're going up that hill, again, ATVs are designed for one person only. This is a true two-up ATV. Never try to go uphill like this on a single rider ATV. You're going to put yourself at risk, and that you're going to cause that machine to roll over on both you and the passenger. Uh, Hills, again, time of day, weather can affect things too. Now, going this way, still got issues. Could be other riders out there, could be wildlife. Again, it's based on your experience. Now, on this hill, if I'm going up that hill and don't have enough momentum, and the machine comes to a stop, what I need to do is set my park brake and get off to the uphill side and always be ahead of my machine. Never get behind your machine. And then what you're going to have to do is just slowly walk that machine back down that hill. But you've got to be really careful. Those machines are heavy, can gain a lot of speed. Machine gets away from you, just let it get away from you. Better it get tore up than you get injured out there on that ATV in that situation. So again, riding experience is real important. Knowing your terrain, checking it out. Here's a scenario that happens in Oklahoma some. It does snow here. If you notice, there's a kind of a creek bed running through here, but a good snowstorm comes in and drifts this creek area closed. If you don't know your area, where you're riding and where things are supposed to be, you may get off trail a little bit, and all of a sudden you fall off into an area that's got ice, a creek area that you drop off into, and you may not be seen. Again, if there's trails already established that somebody's driven through in a snow area, follow those trails. Again, just being safe out there, because things can change out there too, and being safe. And so know the terrain and know that environment. Don't be riding out there if you're not sure where things are. Could be dips, gullies that may be completely covered over, all level, and you can't tell where things may be unless you're familiar with that area based on landmarks, fence lines, trees, buildings, etc. too. Here in Oklahoma, we have a few areas in western Oklahoma where you can ride in the dunes. Now, there are some areas along the rivers where you ride in sand, and riding in sand is a little different. You can actually bury that rear end if you get too much power, and it'll just go right down in. The back tires get buried. So you need to know how to operate your machine in sand. Now, in areas like this, like at Little Sahara, where you've got a lot of dunes, it is required at those state parks that you have a antenna flag that can be seen easily. And if you're riding in a state park on public lands, if you're, they're going to require you to wear a helmet out there. And the only state law we have in Oklahoma currently for wearing gear is for any youth under age 18 on any public lands, state parks, public lands. It's required that you wear that DOT approved helmet. And until state parks like Little Sahara, they're going to check your gear. And doing that, say there's a dune back here, and say maybe there's a machine coming up this side, there's a machine coming up this side. That antenna flag is there for the purpose of making sure that somebody sees that flag coming over this dunes. They know somebody's going to be coming up over the other side, and they're aware of that. That's why that flag is so important. Now, this little area right here, this ridge right here, that's called a razorback. And say it's a lot of sunshine out there, you're riding. It's around noon. Sometimes all this kind of blends together, and it's hard to see these drop-offs. So again, checking that topographical map is real important before you go in and ride in those areas. Know where things are located at. We've had people that have driven off things like this, and they get thrown forward. The machine comes down, lands on top of them, and they get crushed by that ATV. So again, know your riding terrain. And again, even right along this edge going this direction, at that and on that kind of a type of a direction, that whole edge can actually shear off, and then you get rolled up with your ATV and can get injured that way too. Of course, windy days in Oklahoma, like today, we're having a windy day outside. You're going to lose your trail pretty fast in sand. It's going to close shut pretty fast. So that's where you need to probably have that GPS unit, that compass, a map to know how to get back to that trailhead and know where you are. I know I ride a lot out in western U.S., Utah areas were big areas to ride in, and definitely got to know where I'm at with landmarks. Have my topo map, GPS compass units so I can make sure I get back to the trailhead where I started my ride. Again, trail rides, these type of environments, staying hydrated, carrying that thing, carrying a snack with you, plenty of water, because you can get dehydrated fairly easily in the summertime out there riding, even in the wintertime if you're not getting that fluids in your body as you're operating that machine. Moving on, here we are. Here's a scenario. Could be a state park, could be private land, but you notice we've got two ATV operators here, and we've got a bridge in this scenario here too, kind of across this little inlet here. Well, if it's private land, it may be a safe bridge, but if I'm not sure about that, I'm going to get off my machine before I cross that bridge and look at it structurally. Will it support the weight of my 600-pound ATV plus my 200 pounds? Make sure I'm being safe that way too. Most state parks, or I say all state parks, are going to be checking their bridges to make sure they're in good working order. Again, it's a wetland area here. Always stay on designated trails. Don't make new trails. If you're riding on private land, it's a big pasture, maybe there's a group of 3 or 4 or 5 of you riding. If we're going across a big pasture, we're going to separate and spread out. We're not going to go single file. We're going to try to leave the least amount of impact we can on that land as we cross that land, that pasture, that prairie area too. Now, once we've crossed this bridge in this scenario, so we have other people using the outdoors here. Got some, looks like some horse packers are camped out. Let's be respectful of those others out there in the outdoors, and vice versa. They'll be respectful of you too. So once we cross this bridge, we're going to probably turn our machines off, get off our machines, take our gear off so we don't spook that horse and rider. They know who we are. We're going to talk, communicate with them. Again, private land, if we've gotten permission, and you should get permission before you ride any private land, and the landowner shows up, stop that machine, take your gear off, thank them for the opportunity to ride on their private land, because here in Oklahoma, we have probably more private land to ride on than we do public land. And just good common sense. And just being courteous to that landowner and letting them know that. If you're riding on private land and say you come to a fence line and there's a gate there and the gate's closed and you open it and go through it, be sure to close that gate behind you. If the gate's open, leave the gate open. Okay, you may have cattle that's moving from field or pasture to pasture, but leave it like you found it, basically too. And that comes back to leave no trace. Anything you carry in, you carry back out with you. So if you've got snacks out there and you stop for a break, pick up your trash and carry it back out with you. Just being courteous. That's going to allow you to ride in places across Oklahoma and around the country too, and doing that. This last slide right here, as far as a slide to talk about riding, if you're using your ATV for utility work or even a side-by-side, make sure the operator of that large piece of equipment, that farmer, can see you and know where you are in relationship to where they are too. Always make sure you're not between your machine and the tractor. Make sure, again, he has seen you. If you're pulling a trailer to haul material and stuff, read your owner's manual. Know what kind of tows you can have, even on the racks on the back of this ATV. Most ATVs say around 75 pounds of load on the back of that ATV. And so follow those guidelines, read your owner's manual, real important. And again, public highways. Here in Oklahoma, with some of the laws now, you can ride down these roads. Again, manufacturers say you shouldn't be on any public road or highway. Those tires aren't designed for that. We have a guideline rule that if we're going to cross a highway, we can cross on our machine, but it needs to be at a 90-degree angle. If we're moving directly across to another field across the road or going from one trail to another across the road. But we strongly encourage you not to ride down any public road or highway. ATVs and side-by-sides are no match for a car or pickup truck or larger equipment, things like that. Just being safe out there and practicing those common sense things out there as you operate your machine. So we've covered some scenarios here that apply the SIFTY process, that scan, identify, predict, decide, and execute. Again, if you're 16 or older and you're driving a pickup truck, keep those eyes up in front of you, look where you're going, always be prepared for things to go wrong, and be ready for that, and practice that good acronym. As we move on to the slides right here, here's a typical rider course class right here. You can go to the ATV Safety Institute's website just by typing into the search engine, ATV Safety Institute. You can take that online e-course. It takes about an hour and a half, approximately, to 2 hours to take it. You can go back to it several times. You can log back in, just remember your password, and have fun with that class. But our classes are real fun. If you need to take a class, let us know. Be glad to get you set up with a class and get you through a hands-on class. If you want to bring your own machine, if it meets the requirements as far as age and size, you're more than welcome to do that, or we can find you a machine too to do that. And again, we encourage you to go through the rider course class, especially if you've never been through one. A lot of fun. And again, we offer that at no charge to any youth or family here in the state of Oklahoma. Uh, the golden rules of ATV safety, here they are, pretty basic. Number one, always wear that DOT compliant helmet, goggles, long sleeves, long pants, over the ankle boots, and gloves. Never ride on paved roads except to cross when done safely and permitted by law. Vehicles can hit you out there. And again, like we said, you're not a match for that. And they're not designed to be operated on public roads or highways, that hard paved surface. Again, we mentioned this earlier, never ride under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Never carry a passenger on a single rider ATV. Make sure it's designed for two people, a tandem ATV. And again, even the manufacturer says on a tandem ATV, the passenger should be 12 years of age or older. Ride an ATV that's right for your size and age, basically your age. If you're supervising riders, always supervise riders under age 16, especially moms and dads, grandparents, older brothers and sisters. Make sure you're watching younger brothers and sisters. ATVs are not toys. These are powerful machines that can get you and get you in trouble if you know how to safely operate them. Ride only on designated trails and at safe speeds. Remember, things can change on a trail within 30 minutes or less. You never know what can change out there. And then we strongly encourage you to take the hands-on ATV rider course and the free online e-course. So I'm going to wrap up today. I know your teacher's going to go ahead, and he's got a DVD called A Trip Unplanned about two teenage boys doing all the wrong things on an ATV. You're going to get a chance to watch that DVD and kind of evaluate what took place, look for things they're doing wrong. And it's based on a true story of two teenagers in actually just north of North Little Rock in Arkansas. That were out there on their ATVs and around on their ATV doing some things they shouldn't have been doing, and they got themselves in serious trouble. Now, they both survived their crash, but they were seriously injured too. And you'll see more about that in that DVD. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. Take to heart this information. Share it with your friends. If you see your friends doing something stupid out there, stupid does hurt. So make sure you step in and say, hey, we shouldn't be doing that. Make sure they're wearing the proper gear. We have a young man that's an advocate for our program that had been riding all day with his friends. And at the end of the day, about 5 o'clock, was on the river down by El Reno, got on his ATV, didn't put his helmet on. All his buds said, hey, you need to put your helmet on. Well, he didn't put it on. He said, I'll be right back. Well, within 5 minutes, they were dialing 911, and he was lifeline to OU Trauma 1 with major head trauma, a traumatic brain injury. And he's fortunate that he survived that traumatic brain injury. He's not able to ride like he used to. He's got a lot of plates up there on his head and can't do what he used to do sport wise. But again, he did survive, and I know other young people that have had some pretty serious crashes that have some lifelong disabilities because of that crash, because they were not wearing that DOT approved helmet. So just be safe out there. Again, my name is Mike Klump with ATV Ride Safe Oklahoma. I hope you enjoyed the slide presentation. I wish I could be in the classroom with you and doing that today. Maybe we can come back and bring some ATVs and let you get on those statically and learn about those. And again, if you want to take a class, just let us know. We'll be more than happy to get you set up with a class and get you through a rider course program. Be safe out there. Step in. Like I said, you see somebody doing something wrong, you may save their life or prevent them from getting seriously injured. I hope you had a good day today, and the rest of the year. Be safe out there, and we'll catch you down the road. Thank you.